Fine. In today's class, we will learn certain theoretical concepts related to the performance analysis of an algorithm. We sometimes call this term as complexity of an algorithm. The performance analysis, we can also call it as a complexity of the algorithm. Pay attention and understand the concepts. This is very important for the point of examination. You may definitely get a theory question. You may also get a programmatic oriented question. The exercises based upon these concepts, and solving these exercises are little tricky and you need to pay attention. Okay, if you know the concepts, the theoretical concepts, then only you will be able to solve the exercises. Okay, now let's begin with the concepts here. So this analysis, what it helps is that it helps to find the efficiency of an algorithm. So when we say efficiency, the efficiency can be measured in two different terms. One is with respect to the efficiency with respect to the space that is occupied by that particular algorithm when it is converted into a program. And the second one is the time. The time means the amount of time it takes to compute the or solve that particular problem, that we can call it to be a time efficiency. Okay. The another name for the space efficiency is space complexity, and the time efficiency is time complexity. Okay, so algorithm should consume in ideal scenarios least possible time and a least possible space, right? I think you may understand here, if you write any particular algorithm, if suppose if there is a given problem and that problem can be solved in different methods or different approaches. Okay, but the algorithm which consumes less space and at the same time which consumes a less time to execute or to give the solution, then such programs we can call it to be the best algorithms, or the such solutions we can call it to be a best algorithms. So the main analysis of the algorithm, we need to analyze those particular algorithms in order to find its efficiency with respect to its space and with respect to its time. Okay, so how we can measure, or how we can measure the space which algorithm can takes place or will consume when it is converted into a program, and also once the program is created and it starts execution, then how much time it takes to get execute. So how we can calculate these two aspects we are going to learn in this particular concepts. Okay, so first let's begin with the space complexity. Okay, as I said, the space complexity is something wherein the once we write the algorithm and we know that this algorithm is going to be converted into a program. So once it is converted into a program, how much of memory space it will occupy. The memory space, again here, it can be a primary memory or it can be a secondary memory. Both will come into picture. Now you may ask how sir primary memory can come into a picture, right? Now suppose for the computation steps, whenever the computation is happening, what the loader will do, loader will take the code generated by the compiler and it will load onto its primary memory, that is on the RAM. If that code generated itself is a too big size, if it is too big in size or which occupies more or a lot of memory space, then what may happen? The program may not execute properly. It may stop working, or it can work, get executed, but the performance will be very poor. Means it may take very slow time in performing the activities. If the space occupied by that particular algorithm when it is converted into a program, if it is too big, right, then that desired whatever solution we have obtained from that algorithm may not work properly. That is the one thing. The second is that before we convert that particular algorithm into the program, the designer should know, or the designer should predict that how much amount of space is required when this algorithm is converted into a program. That particular amount or the space should be known in advance. The third is we need to keep, as I said, we need to keep this particular memory very less, so that if it is kept very less, then there are a lot of advantages. The first advantage is that the primary memory will not be occupied by the program. Second is the program may get executed very quickly. So ideal scenarios, we have to keep as much as less memory for the algorithm when we design it. Okay, now the program or the algorithm, when it is converted into a program, it can use these three different types of memory spaces. Okay, these three are very important. The first one is instruction space, second is data space, and third is stack space. Okay, let us understand what these three different spaces are. Here, when I say the word space, means it is a piece of memory which is required to store those things in the overall computer memory. Okay, now the first one, that is instruction space. The instruction space, sometimes we can also call it as a code segment. Now code segment is basically what, suppose when you compile the program, when the algorithm is converted into a program, and if it is compiled, and assume that the compilation is successful, and once the compilation is successful, it will generate a type of a code that we call it as a machine code. Later that particular machine code will be loaded onto the RAM and it will be executed. So here the instruction space means it is the amount of space required to store that machine code which gets generated after the compilation is successful. Okay, understood. The code segment is nothing but the machine code which gets generated or which gets populated after the compilation is successful, and the amount of space taken by that is nothing but the instruction space. Okay, this particular instruction space, we say that it is depending upon the compiler, right? It depends upon the compiler, also it depends upon the type of the compiler we use. Or in the other way, we can say it may depend upon the type of the programming language which we have chosen to execute or convert that algorithm into a program. Okay, suppose if we treat that, if the programming language is the same, assuming that if it is the C, then in C compiler, it's in the C programming has got a varieties of compilers, right? There are different types of compilers, like a can you anybody can name the different types of compilers used in C? Any example, any one example can you give the compiler of a C?
GCC.
GCC, okay. Yeah, because we execute the programs, C programs we are executed by typing the GCC, right? But what actually a GCC is? Any other example? Turbo C, have you heard about a compiler Turbo C? Yes, see Turbo C and the GCC, which is popular as the GNU compilers. These compilers are for the compiling C programs, but the machine code what it generates, the size is differs. Size will differ based upon the compilers. Okay, now nowadays the most of the compilers which we use makes use of something called as a dynamic linking and loading. I hope you know the dynamic linking because you have already studied Java, so you might be knowing what a dynamic linking means. Dynamic linking is, can anyone tell me the meaning of dynamic linking? Sai Prakash?
Yes, sir.
Dynamic linking? What we mean by dynamic linking? Anyone? Manisha? Swati?
Links the program at runtime, sir.
Huh. Links the, not program, links the function calls. See, in most of the algorithms, suppose in previous few examples, exercises, we had seen the writing the algorithm by writing a multiple procedures, wherein the main procedure will call or will invoke the another user defined procedure, right? So that linking of the function call to the function definition, if it happens at the runtime, then we call it to be a dynamic linking. right? So if a dynamic linking concept is there, then the time or the space taken by this instruction space or the code segment will be less. Meaning is that if any compiler uses the dynamic linking, if it supports the dynamic linking, then definitely it supports dynamic loading also. Dynamic loading means loading those particular procedure or the functions onto the RAM at the runtime. So that will also be taken care by the compiler itself, right? So such compilers, if we have, then definitely the space taken by this instruction or the code segment will be definitely less. And we can optimize or we can reduce the amount of space for this instruction space or code segments. If we just summarize all these points in a one line, we can say that the code segment is a constant. It will not vary depending upon what type of input a user enters into that particular program. So what type of input means, if there are any external inputs which will be given to the program at the time of execution, if those inputs, if they vary, then also the instruction space or the code segment will remain constant. It will not at all change, provided that, as I said, it depends upon the compiler. That's it. If the same compilers are used on a multiple systems and all at a different run times, the code segment is going to be a same. The space taken by the instruction space is going to be same. Okay, irrespective of the runs which way we execute at the runtime. So the learning from here is that out of those three which we have talked about, which I just listed in the previous slide, that was the first one was instruction space, second is data space, and the stack space. The instruction space remains constant. Okay, now second one is data space. Now data space is kind of a space which is required for to store the data elements of that particular program. So data elements means it can be variables, it can be constants, it can be arrays, or any type of a user defined stuffs. If elements are there to store those data, right? The amount of space required, we can call it to be a data space. The variables can also be of two different types. Variables can be declared as a static or it can be declared as a dynamic type, right? Then the constants which are used in that particular program, arrays, structures, pointers, data structures, okay, and so on. All these data elements, if they are used in the program and the amount of data which or amount of memory it requires, that has to be calculated. We know these points, right? Integer data type consumes 2 bytes of memory, character 1 byte, float 4 bytes, double 8 bytes, and a pointer 2 bytes. These memory spaces, whatever I have listed here, these are based upon the textbook which has been prescribed for you. Okay, in a real life or in a practical oriented, these sizes may vary. For example, if you try to check the size of the integer on your machine, then you may get it to be a 4 bytes. Size of a pointer, you may get it to be again 4 bytes. It depends upon the architecture, or we can say it to be the word length of the particular computer. The memory for each of these fundamental data types may vary. Okay, so this is important. These numbers are important because by using these numbers, we are going to calculate the space required by that particular algorithm or space complexity. Just remember these numbers. The third is stack space. The stack space here is something which is the memory required for the user defined functions, right? Whenever the functions are invoked, the corresponding memory related to those particular user defined function is allocated. And at the same time, when the function gets completed or the function execution gets terminated, at the same time, what will happen? The memory allocated for that particular function will get deallocated. So we need to consider the space of memory which is required by the user defined functions, and such space we call it to be a stack space. So stack space is nothing but these are the memory, okay, for the data elements which are as part of the user defined functions. Okay, and this memory will get activated only when the function gets started execution and the memory will get deallocated when the function stops its execution, which happens in the most of the time related to the programming languages, which makes use of dynamic memory allocation. Okay, now, so what are the different types of memory which it requires are these three things. The first one is for the parameters and the local variables. So parameter means, suppose if the function is taking any parameter, then the space required or the memory space required to store those parameters. And if there are any local variables declared in that one, then those sizes plus the constants if there are any, and the reference variables. Reference variables will most of the time contain the pointers. So the size of those particular pointers and the return addresses. Return addresses means, since these are the user defined functions, definitely these user defined functions would have been called by some other function. So it has to navigate back to that particular function. So the addresses, we call them to be a return addresses. So all these are the part of the stack space. Okay, so in simple term, stack space means these are the data elements, the memory required to execute a particular user defined function. So if you just try to visualize what could be the data elements here, it can be the parameters, the sizes of the parameters, and any local variables which are declared in that particular user defined function, then the constants, the reference variables, or the return addresses. So all these are the memory spaces. For an example, if I want to give you an example here about the stack space, let me take an example. Two minutes, I'm just opening a file. Okay, is this Notepad++ is visible? The algorithm?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now here, if you look into this, go on mute. Respect to this example, water molecules okay. Now, if you look into this particular algorithm, what do we have? We have two different functions, right? Or procedures, you can call it to be. One is the main procedure, other is a linear search procedure. When this particular algorithm is converted into an user defined functions or the program, then you can call this is a main function and this is a linear search function, right? Now, the stack space is nothing but, look at here, this particular line. This is what the function call. Right hand side is the function call. When this particular function is called, the control will transfer from this particular line to here. That is function definition. In the function definition, these lines, if you look at here, we can categorize the memory spaces taken by this particular function into different things. The first one is the parameters. These are the parameters of this particular function. Then how much of memory is required to store these are the parameters for this particular function, and the memory taken by these particular parameters we need to compute as part of the stack space, right? Then in this particular algorithm, there is no local variables. We can skip that part. Then the constants. The constant here are what? Look into this particular assignment operator. This not assignment operator, the equality. We are trying to compare n, which is a variable, with respect to a zero value. So here this zero is a constant. Pay attention. This is very, very important to identify the or understand the spaces or the variables or constants. This is n is equals to 0. Left hand side is a variable, right hand side is a constant, right? 0. The n is getting compared with the 0. So in this one, there are constants available. And then the return types. So if you look at here, we are trying to return something here. What are we returning? -1. That means the -1 again is a constant here. So this way we can categorize what type of the data elements are there. If there are any variables, if there are any parameters, constants, return addresses. Return address is nothing but this particular function is being called by the main function. So once it completes its execution, for example, this is the terminating statement. This is also terminating statement. When this particular return statement is executed, we know that practically the program flow, the execution flow from here, it will skip and go to the wherever it has been called. How this will go back? Because there is something memory, some memory locations. What it stores the return addresses where it has to go back. So those particular return addresses are again part of the stack space. Okay, we will study, we will see the few more examples, okay, in the upcoming classes. Okay, let me go back to the PPT. You may find it to be a little difficult, the theory concepts, but once we start with the exercises, you may find it very easy. Okay, now there are certain functions which we call them to be a recursive functions, isn't it? The recursive, for the recursive functions, the total space depends upon the depth of the recursion. So depth of the recursion means, if you just know the concept of the recursion, we have solved certain examples, right? Certain exercises. The recursive functions will get called themselves again and again until the it finds the condition where the termination of that particular recursion happens. Till then, the function is going to be recursively called. Suppose if there is a if the recursion happens 4 times, then we call the depth of the recursion as 4. If the recursion is happening for 2 times, then we can call it to be a depth of 2. Okay, why this number is required? Because when the function gets executed, or to be precise, when the recursive function executes, suppose if it requires 10 bytes of a memory space. When a recursive function gets executed, if it requires 10 bytes of a memory space, and assuming that if the depth is 4, if the depth is 4, means it will get recursively called 4 times. In that case, the recursive function, the stack space will be those many times multiplied by 10 bytes. 4 into 10 will be 40 bytes required for the recursive function. So for the recursive function, the depth depends, or the total number of space, the stack space depends upon the depth of the recursion. To show an example here, students, do you have the algorithm with you? Which example shall I take? Factorial. Do you have a notebook with you right now? Just turn the page to the factorial. Students, respond to me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just turn the page to the factorial algorithm, the one which we have solved using the recursion. I think recursion algorithm you should be having, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, see there in that particular algorithm, when the number n from the main procedure, if that number n is 4, okay, in that case, how many times that factorial function will get called? When n is 4, how many times the particular factorial function gets called?
4.
4 times.
Yes, sir.
Others, what about others? See here. When the factorial, when we call here, suppose, okay, we are trying to read the number and this particular number is 4. Okay, the number is 4 and the factorial function is called here. So here with n as 4 it is going to be called. So here n is equals to 4. So this is first time. First time the factorial function is get called. Now, okay, now the stack space, why we call it to be a stack space is based upon the concept of a stack data structure. Okay, it is based upon the stack data structure. What is the concept of stack data structure? What is the concept behind stack data structure? How the
First in, first out.
First in, first out. Is that true?
First out.
First in, first out, or last in, first out?
Last in, first out.
Last in, first out is the stack. Okay, understand this concept. This is important for your now stack space. Assume that there is a stack which is empty. We do have a stack which is empty. Okay, now first we know that the value of n is 4. So the factorial of n will be called. So factorial of n means first time the stack will get pushed with factorial of 4. Factorial of 4. Okay, now assume that this particular factorial function requires certain, say, x bytes. Okay, x bytes of memory. We don't know what is exactly. As of now, we can just say that x bytes of memory is required. So the factorial function is called by passing n value or parameter as 4. Okay, it enters into the factorial function and it executes and it again calls the factorial function. And the next time when the factorial function is passed, what is the n value? What will be the n value? For the second time, the factorial function is called.
3.
What will be the n value?
3.
3. Right? Now, try to visualize that this is a stack. This is a kind of a container. First time it was empty. When the first time this factorial was called with 4, it got pushed one particular element. That is the first element as factorial of 4. So this we have it in the stack. We have it in a stack. After that, the again factorial function is called. That time we are passing n minus 1. So 4 minus 1 is 3. So again this factorial 3 is being called. Means it is again pushed into the stack memory space. Okay. Then again this particular factorial of 3 will require the same amount of memory bytes. Assume that it will again require the x bytes of memory. Okay. Then again next time when the factorial will get, the factorial function is called by passing 3 number, it will go into its statements and again it will call the function, the factorial, and this time the n value will be what? 2.
2.
Right? Again the function call is pushed onto the stack. Again it may require the same amount of memory to get executed. Right? Then what will happen? Can you tell me what will be the next line which I should write here? What is going to be pushed again?
1.
Factorial of 1. Because when the factorial of 2 is called, definitely it is going to call again factorial of n minus 1. That is 2 minus 1. That is 1. Then again factorial of 1 is called. Right? Then again this may require the same amount of memory. Now pay attention here. This is a stack on which at the bottom base we have a factorial 4, then factorial 3, factorial 2 and factorial 1. When the function is called, the factorial function is called by passing 1, do you think that again it is going to call the factorial 0?
No, sir.
No.
It will not call. It will not call factorial of 0 because the condition here will be true So what will happen? It is going to return 1. It will execute the return statement now. Now here, return statement is not calling the function, but it is returning a value, right? Now, the other part of stack operation, until now you were seeing the push operations, right? So now whenever this factorial 1 gets called, what will happen? It will start popping the elements. So this factorial 1 will get replaced with the value 1, will get replaced with value 1, and this 1 will be returned to whom? It will be returned to factorial 2. So factorial 2, what will happen here? 2 into 1 will get calculated. 2 into 1 will get calculated, and then it is going to return it to the previous element. So here it is going to calculate 3 into 2 into 1, right? And then it is going to again pop, and it is going to return the value 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Okay, now the point of understanding the concept here is that whenever we have the recursive functions, right? The recursive functions, we know those are going to be called by themselves. Each and every, pay attention, each and every function called to the recursive functions will get pushed into the stacks. The number of those function calls or the number of execution of that particular user defined function, it directly depends upon the instance variable. It directly depends upon the instance variable. The instance variable we mean here is that the value of n. For the example, in this particular example factorial, it directly depends upon the n value. If the n is 4, then this factorial function will be called 4 times. If the n value is 10, suppose if the n value is 10, then we can say that this particular factorial function will get called 10 times, right? Now, the space, how we can identify here total number of space, that is stack space required by this particular algorithm, will be n multiplied by x bytes. This x bytes is nothing but the amount of memory space which is required to execute once. If it gets executed n time, then it is going to be n into x bytes. For instance, assume that if this x is a 10 bytes, then to execute, suppose if the n is 4, then total number of space required by that particular algorithm when it is executed is going to be 40 bytes. Now again, if you notice here, this size varies, or this size depends upon the instance characteristics or instance variables. This is 40 when n is 4. It may become 100 when n is 10. So these type of bytes or these type of memory spaces are directly depending upon the instance characteristics or instance variables. Instance characteristics are nothing but the variables on which the entire algorithm is depending upon. The memory space may vary. Sometimes the time also may vary. If the number of n is too big, then the time required for that particular algorithm when it is converted into program, again it may vary. So we call it to be a instance characteristics of the particular algorithm. Is this understood, students? The stack space, what actually we mean by the stack space, and the statement which I made in the PPT related to the recursive algorithms. For recursive functions, the total space depends upon the depth of the recursion. The depth of recursion means the number of times the recursive function gets called. Students, are you following?
Yes,
If
sir.
there are any doubts, please feel free to ask. Are there any difficulties here? Okay, now to just summarize here, now if you think here, these are the three different spaces which we have studied now. Instruction space. Instruction space means what? The machine code. once the compilation is successful, the compiler will produce a machine code, the space required by that particular machine code. Okay. Then second one is data space. Data space is, suppose, just try to visualize that data space is nothing but if you have only the main algorithm or main procedure, then the data related to that particular main algorithm. Stack space, this is related to the functions. If the algorithm makes use of a user defined functions, then the data elements related to that particular functions are taken here. In case of a recursive algorithm, the total space will depend upon the depth of the functions or recursiveness. Now, if you just think that if the total memory space is going to be sum of all these three things, out of these three things, the instruction space is something which is a constant. It will not vary with respect to whatever be the value of n or instance characteristics. Whatever may be the value of instance characteristics at the runtime, the space required by the instruction space or machine code will not vary. It is a constant. So when we come to the concept of a space complexity, if we want to know the space complexity of a particular algorithm, for us, it is only sufficient if we can calculate the space required by point number 2 and 3 itself. That is data space and the stack space. If you can populate and find out these two spaces or the memory spaces, then based upon that, we can say how much of memory space is required by this particular algorithm. The instruction space is immaterial here because it is a constant. The same thing I have put it here. If CP is the space required for the instruction space or the code segment, and SP is the space required for data space as well as stack space, then total space is this one. But here, assuming that this CP is a constant, right, then in that case, the total space complexity is directly depends upon SP, that is data space and stack space. Okay, so now onwards, if there are any exercises which we are going to work upon to find out the space complexity, in that case, for us, it is only we are going to calculate the memory space required by the data space plus stack space. The exercises are going to be very simple. There will be algorithms and there will be different variables, constants used in that. So only we will try to focus upon the variables and the constants, and based upon those number of variables and the constants, we will populate the memories. For simple example, look at here. Now, what do you think, students, here? How many variables are there and how many constants are there? And what could be the data type of those variables?
4 variables.
4 variables. Name them.
AVG, that average, A and B, C.
Yes, A, B, C and average are the 4 variables. Okay, then do you think that there are any constants in this algorithm?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, what is that constant?
3.
3.
3, right? 3, to be more precise here, 3.0. Now we know that the different variables and the different constants. Irrespective whether it is a variable or a constant, both will have a associated data type. Yes or no? Both of them will be having a data type, right? Now, you said there are 4 variables. Can you categorize them with respect to its data types?
Yes, sir.
What are the integer data types?
A, B, C.
A, B, C.
Integer data types are A, B, C. Now, total space required by these 3 ABC going to be what? 3 times 2 bytes, because for one particular integer variable, it requires 2 bytes. So total it will be a 6 bytes. In the same way, how many float variables are there?
One.
Only one, right? AVG, that is 4 bytes. And what about constant? That is 3.0. 3.0 is what? It is a float now here. That means 4 bytes. Now, can you tell me what is the total space complexity of this particular algorithm?
Fourteen
14.
bytes.
14 bytes. Yes, that is 14
Yes.
bytes. See, the examples are pretty simple, right? Theory behind that, it is little different. It is little difficult to understand, but the examples are very simple. Only thing is that you need to understand or identify what are the variables, its type, and the constants. Identifying constants will become difficult. Okay, remember this, identifying constants will become difficult, but there is a thumb rule in that. Okay, I will tell you that particular thumb rule in the next class. Okay, fine. Then in tomorrow's class, we will study the next second type of complexity, that is time complexity or time efficiency. Okay, is that understood, students? The concepts which we have studied in today's class?
Yes, sir.
Can anyone summarize
Sir.
in just one statement what we mean by space complexity?
It's amount of data it required by.
Amount of memory space required by the algorithm when it is converted into a program for the execution. What are the three different spaces required by the algorithm?
Instruction space, data
Instruction-
space, stack space.
Instruction space is also called as
Code segment.
code segment. Code segment is the machine code which gets generated after compilation is successful. Okay, and this particular space or the memory remains constant. Okay, for a particular compiler or and for a particular programming language. So we can keep it aside, means we can exclude this from the calculating the space complexity, because the space complexity will depend directly upon the instance characteristics. Okay, remember this particular word, instance characteristics. Instance characteristics means the type of the externally supplied inputs, okay, to a particular algorithm. If it varies, then the space complexity may vary, and also it is applicable for the time complexity also. So depending upon the instance variables or the instance characteristics, okay, we can treat the remaining two types of the spaces. The one is data space and the stack space. If we can find out those two things and add them together, then we will get the space complexity of a particular algorithm. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Any doubts,
Yes,
any
sir.
difficulties?
Yes, sir.
See, the concepts, let me show you a particular algorithm. 1 second. See, earlier also we had studied this particular algorithm, right? The factorial, finding the factorial of a given number. Okay, the algorithm remains same, but the way we look at the algorithm and the data which we take out from this algorithm will vary depending upon what type of the concepts we are studying. We all know that in previous programming languages like in Java or in C programming language, we have studied that whenever a function call statement is executed, what will happen? It will call the function definition, right? These concepts are known. If you know these concepts very well, then understanding the stack space and understanding the data space will become very easy, or understanding that particular stack concept will become easy. Whenever the function is called, what will happen? The memory related to that particular function call will get added onto the stack space. So what that stack space will do, it's think of it is a stack. Initially it will be empty, and once the first time the function is called, that particular function call will get added onto the stack. Next time, if there are any other function calls, it will keep on pushing those function calls into the stack. Once it finds the particular situation where no more function calls are getting added, then definitely what has to be done? the control should go to its previous space. So previous space means it has to start popping the elements, right? The concept of stack here. All our function calls, it could be any type of the programming language. So all these function calls makes use of the concept called as the stacks.